Anyway, so I am really curious if you guys will each introduce yourselves and just kind of, Will and Austin, just kind of where you are on Dungeons and Dragons, kind of your history with it, and let's just get to know each other a little bit and where you're at, and then we'll start talking about maybe Dungeons and Dragons. The oh shoot, what's the full title here?
Uh, Honor Among Thieves.
Honor Among Thieves. I kept trying to say heroes, and I'm like, that didn't feel right. Honor Among Thieves, and strong opinions are encouraged. So, Austin, do you want to introduce yourself? You apparently have played Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes, I'm Austin. I've only been playing Dungeons and Dragons off and on since 2015. Um, the way I kind of fell into it, I've always known what it is. It's kind of a ubiquitous term in tabletop. Anytime anybody says tabletop, D&D somehow gets mixed into the conversation.
Yeah.
I've always been interested in it. Um, Personally, I'm a avid video gamer. I've been a video gamer for over 30 years now. But it maybe as I've gotten older, um, uh, or how technology has evolved, where everything has gone to online, such as this,
Yes.
um, having that in-person experience with other people, sharing the exact same experience with other people in the same room, that's a lot more intimate for me. Kind of drew me towards D&D.
Oh, awesome.
Um, One of my coworkers actually invited me to their campaign they started, and I jumped in as just a cleric because I had no idea what I was doing. Obviously, that was a great beginning class to jump into, but it worked out. But I that was 6 years ago, and I still remember vivid memories of like what we did and what the emotions were in the room when everybody was like trying to crunch numbers. And ever since then, I've been kind of headfirst into um, different types of D&D podcasts out there. Um, Critical Role is a big one, Dimension 20, so on and so forth. So I like, I love to see how not much the game mechanics, but more the journey along the way with people and how the characters and they evolve. And then obviously the shenanigans on the side are just bar none. So.
Fun. Yeah. So, Will, what's your
Hi.
experience? Yes.
So I've been playing D&D since I was a little kid. My dad actually introduced it to me when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I played it for the first time, like almost, yeah, I'm 19, so almost 20. Ooh, weird. Um, about like 14 or so years ago, I kind of picked it up for the first time, and it was a great time. It's like a short breakdown of it is through a what's called a dungeon master or DM, usually game master. They will do the NPCs, and we'll have what are called PCs or player characters. Will kind of be like the interaction with the world around everything. And I've been playing it for a long time, and I have a really fun time with it because of kind of like enjoying the storytelling aspect, world immersion, and kind of the fun things that you can do with it because you can make it totally homemade and totally your own, or you can do it from the official licensed books. And I mean, like the guy that invented it, Gary Gygax, back in the 70s or 80s, didn't know the kind of revolution he was starting with a lot of the youth at the time, especially with the Satanic Panic, if you guys remember what that was, or
Oh,
because the Satanic Panic back in the day, all everybody was like, "Oh, D&D, satanic."
I have. My experience, I started when I started junior high, they pulled a group of us out into a special class and said, you don't have to take English. We're going to put you in this experimental 2 hour class. And so we did all kinds of things from learning Russian dance to learning how to make falafels and all this stuff. And one of the things that we did was play Dungeons and Dragons. And this was in 1978. And it was this brand new thing. We got to play it once, and it was amazing. It was incredibly fun. And then, yes, the satanic panic. It shut us down. Parents called in, and
Oh
we were
yeah.
never allowed to even mention it after that. So I've always had a love of it just because of that experience, honestly. And the panic, I would have just forgotten about it if the parents hadn't been, totally up in arms. My parents weren't; they didn't care. But I never did continue playing. Although it's always the concepts of it have always been with me as I've become an author. Even though it's nonfiction, those kinds of characters and their abilities and moving them around and just those ideas kind of changed my brain. So I love it from that perspective. And I wish I'd pursued it a little bit more. But we want to kind of talk a little bit about have has so Will, you were able to go and see apologies about my voice. You were able to go and see the Honor Among Thieves.
Yep.
Austin, have you been able to go see it, or do you plan?
Yep.
Or you've seen it? Okay. Yeah, my husband and I went as well, and so we could start right in on this. Austin, what's your first opinion? Well, what hopes did you have for Honor Among Thieves?
Uh, Distrust. It's hard to say this because not to go into the business or political background of this, but to kind of give a some quick cliff notes. Back in January, early February, Hasbro, who owns WotC, who owns the license for Dungeons and Dragons, they tried to pull a quick one on a lot of people in regards of licensing and subscription. And until that happened, I was very excited to go see this movie. But when they they threw this card down, caught a lot of people off surprise, did not go over very well. I was I didn't have much trust to go watch this movie just because of that. So I was hesitant to go see it opening day. I wanted to, but we finally got to watch it this Saturday. Um, but watching it, it was a pleasant surprise. Um, it was not, to my opinion, it's not the first media form of media in a TV show or a movie adaptation of D&D that did D&D as a tabletop game justice. I honestly think that that title goes to The Legend of Vox Machina. I don't know if you ever
Totally
watched
agree
that.
with you.
I'm gonna have
There,
to.
yes, I 100% believe anybody who loves that movie should go watch that show. It's not for kids. I have to preface this right now, disclaimer, it's not for young adults. Um, but The Legend of Vox Machina was built off Critical Role's, I think, second campaign. Um, and as the TV show goes on, they progress through the plot line of that campaign. But I digress. Watching the movie, it was, I felt like there was a lot more respect to the people who play D&D. I don't know. I'll be the first to admit I am not that gray beard wizard who reads every little bit of lore within the D&D realms, plural. Um, but you can tell they definitely tip their hat in a lot of different types of Easter eggs and gave homage to Gygax and Ed. Can't think of his last name right now. But on the flip side, it kept the pace of the movie, in my opinion, really quick. Um, and Will probably knows that when you play a campaign, there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of
There's
downtime, a lot of math.
there's a lot of snacks. There's a lot of restroom breaks.
Oh yeah.
Breaks. So trying to compile multi-day, multi-month, even multi-year campaigns into a less than 3 hour movie, that is almost an impossible feat. They did it, and you can tell that a lot of corners had to be cut. They're more nitpicks. It's not like a huge continuity issue. But at the end of it, I mean, I'll be honest, I was thirsting for more.
Oh, okay, cool. That's yeah, Will.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different opinion after having played for so long. I actually feel like the movie used a lot of the tropes that I've seen and used it really cookie cutter like, and didn't depart from something that I would have expected to have from a movie. And I did like some of the Easter eggs that were in there, like Baldur's Gate, or specifically like a lot of these very fun things that were there. However, I would have liked to see a little bit more of a imaginative and different sort of a storytelling way, because a lot of it, they had the stuff of hither and thither, and just a lot of the tropes that once you start playing for a long time, you start seeing patterns in these games, and they really didn't depart from that or do anything, I guess, kind of different than even the original. I would say that it was a lot better than the first Dungeons and Dragons movie for sure, a lot better. And I would say that like Austin said, they had to cut a lot of corners because in a D&D campaign that spans, I think my longest one was about 4 years. It like to get that down into like a less than 3 hour movie, you have to cut, edit, and snippet a bunch of stuff that would have been fun additions, but would have made it like a 5 or 6 hour movie.
At the very least. Um, so I I really I enjoyed the characters and the unexpectedness of some of them, as far as just having these good actors acting differently than what I expected them to act like, right? Coming in from that kind of a perspective. But did you find did one of the things that I was struggling with was I didn't feel like there was any uh, the element of surprise was gone for me,
Yeah,
and
I'd say that I agree with that for sure.
because in a well formed work, when we look at stories that really perform well, excuse me, I was in the alfalfa earlier and I'm struggling to talk. Um, in a well formed work, you always are looking for that element of surprise, something that is a delight, is unexpected. It doesn't mean humor or pop out of the box or anything like that. It's just this twist or turn that keeps us just, I didn't expect that. Oh, that was amazing. And I wondered if being familiar with the game, that you would get those references would be these little Easter eggs, like you said. They're the Easter eggs that you're going, oh my goodness, that was awesome. Easter eggs is one way to do the element of surprise, talking to your particular audience. But then there's also just the turn of surprise, like I knew the ending, I knew how it was going to wrap, like almost as soon it was as the idea was introduced that you could resurrect.
Yeah, yeah. I
Is that just me, or is that just because, or did you feel like that just because of your familiarity with D&D, or do you think it would have been a surprise to a particular audience at all?
No, because as soon as you start with, like the tablet of resurrection, or I already forgot what it was called, but as soon as you start with like having that tablet, or having, the scam artist, the sorcerer that was trying to scam people, or, the very grug barbarian, like you know what's coming, you know what's going to happen, and it ends. I mean, I gotta say the final fight was fun to watch, you know.
Short.
It was very short, but it was fun to watch a Thayan get their butt kicked.
Oh yeah. The there's there's Chekhov's gun, and then there's a whole new level of this. I mean, they've talked about the entire movie. And it was, I don't want to say that I felt like they were trying to dumb down the audience, but that was how I was starting to perceive it. There's been better ways where you can um the hither tither staff, I think, was probably the best way how they introduced it. Was not, they really talked about it. She just grabbed it, put it in her bag, and that was that. And that happens too. Especially in like real campaigns. You could go be out of the room. One of your other PC's player character will grab um like the bag of holding, and you didn't know that. And be like, oh yeah, I'll put it in my bag. And like it's, I don't know, it's a great axe. It's not gonna fit in there. And sure enough, it fits in there. And it's a good subtle introduction to the plot. But but the tablet of resurrection was what, probably about a dozen times I mentioned it. I mean, it
Yes.
was, and then as time progressed, everybody started falling, build rapport with the barbarian. I can't remember her name, and it was just like, yeah, it's this is how it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, you
Well,
know what? I know the immediate time exactly when it was gonna happen was um when the daughter and the barbarian built relationship, or they showed that relationship each other. I was like, well, that's that.
Yeah, and we feel okay about it because yes, they if they had not built that relationship, then I'd feel kind of like, oh, well, that didn't make sense when it came to that ending. But it also really telegraphed the ending, is my feeling. Wendy, what do you feel about the ending? I know you've got some opinions.
oh, yeah, I just thought that was also a long time, and we could see that coming a long way away. So I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this is what I expect. But I did, I don't know if I felt like a little manipulated, but I felt a little emotion in the scene when the way they did it. So I was expecting it. I was like kind of a little ho hum, but I thought, oh well, that's actually sweet. And I didn't feel good from the beginning that he was going to bring back his wife. That just didn't seem right. And but the little flashback scenes in the middle of that scene, I just thought were, they were tender, and I think needed also for him to see to really get the realization of what needed to happen. So I don't know. I fell for it in that one little moment, but yeah, I agree. It was like, oh yeah, we can see how this is gonna how this is
Now,
going down.
I did, like you mentioned, Austin, the hither staff. I thought that was well done too. That was kind of a really fun introduction to being able to move through and evade and they explained it as they went, that I was able to follow the magic behind it. Um,
Did you guys
The
mention? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say honestly think the best part about that entire movie was the banter between the characters, the hither staff, and the puzzle of the bridge. Um,
Yes.
to me, that spoke to me so much because I've done that multiple times where we just talk back and forth, and some dude or person gets just impatient. It's like, and I touched the stone, and DM's like, what the crap? Um,
That
it's
was the
just
funniest part to me. And as a non-player, I totally got what was going on. Like I could totally understand. I've never played D&D, and I'm like, "Oh, this is brilliant. I'm getting it as a non-player, and this is funny."
it's you can almost see the frustration like the on the DM's face as that was happening. It's like, oh yeah, he's mad. He spent so much time to build his puzzle
Oh
and
yeah.
they ruined it in within 30 seconds. So
It was absolutely hilarious when the sorcerer just stepped on the bridge. Just stepped on the bridge. It was so elaborate, and he just steps on the bridge and just crumbles it, and they're like, okay.
yep.
so, would you recommend that people go see it? And what type of people would you recommend see it? Or even um, give us a pitch for joining a group and playing D&D.
I would definitely recommend that people that maybe have not played before or are brand new players go watch it to get a good idea of what you could maybe expect in a campaign and things like that. And I'd recommend going to go do a campaign because of a lot of friends you'll meet. It's very personal, and you make a lot of friends that you'll keep for a long time through just a lot of fun storytelling and a lot of really good bonding time with friends.
And it's all character based. That's what I love about it.
Yep.
How do you find groups if you've never done anything? And I don't know if I know anyone personally who does it. So how do you find groups?
Discord. Discord is perfect for it.
Okay.
There's a lot of websites and programs. If you watch any D&D related YouTube videos, there's ads and sponsors that will talk about like D&D Beyond that have starting groups. There's one called Just Start Playing. I want to say that's the name. You go on there, and it's a lot of new timers. I mean, there are services where veteran DMs will be hired to.
Yes.
So if you have a group of friends, you just go find this person, and they'll create a character sheet for you. It could be a one-time deal, or it could be a multi-string campaign. It's up to your prerogative. Um, for this movie, I would say watch it twice. Watch it as a movie, face value. It's like I said, it's a very quick, it's an easy, fun movie, and that's really hard to say nowadays because everybody's trying hard for either it's Oscar bait or it's they're trying to do something that just doesn't really connect with the audience. This kind of does can't please everybody, but it's a fun
Better.
movie. Um, then I would recommend to go play just a one shot. A one shot's just you sit down for this one time. It could be 4 hours, it could be 6 hours, it could be an hour long, and you play a story. And you get the experience of what it is when you get a character, you play as that character and how you try to grow with that character along the campaign and try to have closure at the end of the campaign as you with that character. Then go back and watch the movie again and try to think when you watch these characters, these actors, they're kind of a surrogate of people playing them at the table, and it'll change your mind. Like, oh, they could have done this better, or oh, this was amazing. That's why I talk about that banter because that's been done before in real life. So that clicked with me really good.
I do like to see movies moving into something that they've not done before and to test it out and try it because I am tired of just, oh, let's expand Marvel and just go into the metaverse now. And just all this CGI stuff is just dizzying to me, and I think they've lost story. Where I like D&D because it focuses on character.
The closest one I can think of right now is probably Star Wars with
Oh my gosh,
Andor,
perfect.
Mandalorian.
Yes.
Um, they have the universe, and D&D is a multi-realm universe in itself, and just to focus on not only a character but on the timeline of that lore, there is it's a significantly deep well that can be tapped into, but it's don't know who's more how do I say is passionate about it, whether it's D&D players or Star Wars fans.
I would, yeah, I say that a very good way of explaining this to me, to somebody about kind of the angst you could feel if you're a fan of it is, you remember when 2015, when the brand new Star Wars came out, you know, like the third trilogy, and kind of like everybody, or 2014 maybe, but we all had anxiety about it. You know, this is our childhood, this is something we grew up with, and then you go watch it, and you're like, okay.
It's a totally different dynamic. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you don't want the movies to be ruining D&D for you? Is that what you're saying?
I kind of, yeah. Like, I don't want it. I'm not trying to gatekeep. Like, 'cause the last thing I want to do is make it so that it's an inaccessible fan thing for somebody. But at the same time, like something a little bit more imaginative, I'd like a lot more personally.
Okay.
And
So,
So, like avoiding a lot of the tropes.
uh, so,
and it's
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say it's just treating the fan base with respect. You can't give us a watered down version of a poorly resourced movie. Clearly, this was not. But if they continue doing this, they can't have these. Uh, D&D's been around for a very long time, and to bring a very weak attempt, and especially in this day and age with the technology and resources that we have, is a slap to the face, the fan base.
It is.
Yeah, I would agree. So if they just start churning them out because they're quick money makers, which is what we're seeing a lot on streaming, services of just people churning out whatever it is, whether you're a rom-com lover or a, Hallmark Christmas movie, whatever, they just churn them out. They get this little formula. So, in our business, we're really about reaching that target audience, and obviously D&D players are the prime target audience for this movie. And so would you guys say that it sounds like you were, but do you feel like you were hit well on target for this movie?
Yes and no. We, as D&D fans of the genre, we always expect, especially when it comes to any type of media of a good story, we expect a buffet that's always open, a 24/7 buffet where you can go back and continue. This was just a good one course meal. It, in my opinion, this type of movie should be broken up like Star Wars, part one, part two, part three, because there is so much within the D&D universe. It's like I said, it's almost impossible to fit it within a sub 3 hour movie without cutting corners. And if they broke it up into at least a three-parter, I think they could have done a better job justifying it. But something tells me was more of a test to see what the reception was. And as far as I can tell, the reception is good. I haven't seen what the numbers are in box office, but if it's good enough and it beats that threshold, I can almost guarantee they're going to make another one.
Yeah, they've
But
already subtitled it as if there's going to be more.
yeah, and that kind of goes into I was talking to my partner about this, and I did not like the ending.
Agreed.
The just even from a movie standpoint to a DM standpoint, you beat the final boss in such a short. If in a hypothetical way, if I was a DM and this is my boss, and I get my butt whipped within, what was it, 2 minutes of fight time, I'd be so angry about that. Like, oh yeah, by the way, here comes Vecna from the it's like he's gonna bring the rain now. A good example would be Legends of Vox Machina and the end of first season. Well, I think you're talking about where they look into the sun and then you see the conclave come,
There you
and you're
go.
like,
There you go.
oh God, what's about to happen?
Oh
That's a
no.
cliffhanger. That's how you lead up to the second and want people to
Yes.
strive for more. But and this is more of I guess a socioeconomical standpoint is they don't want to spur up another satanic panic because D&D has that kind of scarlet letter behind it. It's not there much anymore. It's a lot more open, and especially in the last, what, 7 years.
Oh yeah. You're seeing people that'll hop into games that you would have never done it before, like just at your local comic book store, like I have over here.
Yeah, there's actually, to give you guys an idea, I don't know if you guys understand how many actors actually play D&D. Will Wheaton, he is infamous for the worst roller in D&D history.
Are you
Uh,
serious?
oh, it's so hilarious. Stephen Colbert, Patton Oswalt, Kevin Smith, Vin Diesel. I mean, there's just so many of them play D&D, and you can tell that a lot of them, successful actors who play D&D, they're good at adapting quickly because part of D&D is improv.
Yes.
Yeah.
And oh yeah, I want to
Henry
bring this up
Cavill
because
too.
this kind of bugged me, but they try to do it a little bit. So, and this, I think we should try to spend some time on this. Well, when you're in a campaign and um, you're trying to perform an action and you fail that action, it could be so bad that could be part of the canon of that plot.
Yes.
So, Legends of Vox Machina does a really good job. They can't pick a door. I mean, you got a rogue and a bard, and they're trying to lockpick, and they can't do it. It's because they didn't roll high enough to unlock the door. They kind of do it in the Honor Among Thieves with when they speak with the dead. You kind of get that feeling where it's like, oh, we kept on failing, and there was a little bit of fails, but it wasn't so bad. It became canon within the plot,
So
where
that
you
would
would
have
just be
been
like, oh, that'd be
so
funny.
cool if they had introduced something that was fun for everybody and unexpected in traditional movies.
And that's what I 100% love about D&D. So the rule is if you roll a 1 or 20 on a 20-sided dice and it's in a very important action, actually take that, doesn't have to be important, but just an action itself. It's up to the description of the DM of what they want to do, and they can make that canon if they want to. So say um, every time when they were talking to the dead, they rolled a nat one, and it was so bad that every time they answered a question, the head fell off or something like that. And that could have been canon because it's so far fetched. You're like, why would that happen? But from a standpoint of being the player of that actor, and it rolls so bad, it just completely falls flat, and they have to adapt to it. And now that's part of that has to follow them the entire story.
Yeah.
So
That sounds fun.
I think
Go ahead, Will.
no,
Give us your answer on that.
yeah, no. So I think it's very I'd like to definitely agree with him a lot there because I feel like they succeeded a lot more in the movie than you would in an actual campaign. Because okay, so for example, I had this one character. His name was Meatwall. It's a level 20 dwarvish barbarian. By the time I was done with him, I
well,
know, dude, it was fun. But so, for example, one of his critical fails. So I rolled a one on, I think it was an athletics check or something. So I was trying to do something, and he got a spike to the face and had a scar for the rest of it that scared everybody. So he had a negative on any persuasion checks or anything like that for the rest of the campaign. For I played him for years, and that's kind of that's kind of the thing that I'd like to see. I have to agree with him. Is just that sort of a thing where you failed so bad that it just becomes kind of like the inside joke and like the lore of the game.
And that's where I think I was missing that element of surprise. That could have very much tipped it over for me.
Yeah, it seemed pretty pedestrian in a way. I mean, it was entertaining, but there weren't a lot of surprises. Well, listening to you guys, it's obvious that no movie's ever going to replicate what D&D can do. It's just there's just when you have so many interlocking stories and characters and um, possibilities of where the story can go. No movie will ever do that. But
I think it's possible, actually. I do think it's
really,
possible.
I was gonna.
Like, yes,
That was
very
my
much
next
so.
question. Was what would you suggest they
ah,
do on a sequel or just a totally new D&D movie?
Pool together a pool of experienced players or even unexperienced players, pool them together and actually ask them the questions. What do you want to see in a movie? Because this is your target audience. Ask us. It's kind of like the whole Star Wars thing. Like, if they would have asked the Star Wars fans, hey, what do you want to see? And, from the information we give them, they craft a story based upon that, right? I think that'd be fun with a D&D campaign because it is possible. It is possible to have a movie that caters to a lot of these things, caters to the interactions, and caters to really everything we want to see. I just think that people in Hollywood, and especially the writers in Hollywood, get too stuck up in the tropes and in the regular things that will provoke emotional reactions and that they know will make an immediate amount of money right now. So
yeah.
I agree with Will. Where they stick to the tropes. D&D is not a run of the mill type of story. It can be extremely in depth, and they could have done the style of basically John Wick, where
oh
you
yeah.
were not told what the world is. They spoon fed you a little bit at a time, and they try to fit, in my opinion, a multi-month campaign into a 3 hour movie. It should have been a lot smaller, and it honestly could have probably ended after oh man, the dragon. After they finish with the dragon and the paladin, when he walks away as the guest character,
The
could have
obese
stopped there.
dragon. I loved that dragon, dude.
Oh,
That
I
was
was wondering about.
hilarious.
that was beautiful.
That was
But
fun.
yeah, that's or when he couldn't fail to attune to the helmet. That could have stopped right there. And just in the plot itself, they cut it there and expanded on more every other character and their backstory just a little bit better and stop there. And then part two come in. I think it would have been a lot better. The fact is that they have to explain everything to us and then try to cram pack so much um, that I don't want to say it's disrespectful, but it's just not given the proper time to every give us the time for us to marinate on an important an important scene.
Okay, interesting.
Definitely.
So you both kind of mentioned how these campaigns take a long time. Would you have had them do a non-ending, a total cliffhanger, or would you have them? Because sometimes that's a real negative. I mean, people get frustrated with that.
We
Uh,
need a small resolution. Like they got away from the dragon, they haven't solved everything, right? We need some little small resolution, I think. But
would you like? I loved. I think what you mentioned. I try to remember who that. Just all of a sudden, I think you both mentioned it. The just this little hook at the very, very end. After the resolution of everything, you have this sudden little, mouse runs off with something, or the sun, or, there's some little opening for the next story if somebody's watching, but you still have a full resolution in this original.
They, yeah, they seem like they dropped the bag with the Zast Ham character. It's like he or she is referred to, but we don't. And so Sophia's gone, and we have a sense that this other guy's going to come, but it didn't seem very well developed to me. I I was assuming that that's going to be the next bad guy, but I don't know.
It's so from a D&D player, it's totally up to the discretion of the DM. They could absolutely uh isn't a quick example in Legend of Vox. I know I keep on going back, but that's probably a better representation of what D&D is like versus this movie. But I think it's in the Will help me. Is it the third season or second season run right now? Second season, right?
I think it's the second. Could be.
Okay, so second season, episode 2, um, uh, Vex uh gets killed.
Okay.
And it was completely like, what the crap? The rule is you always have your rogue check for traps. And she dies and the episode ends. You're like, what? Like, do you want a cliffhanger? That's a cliffhanger. And I'm not going to spoil whatever happens after that, but you can have a cliffhanger where people are screaming at the screen for more. And I mean, I'll say I'm not a Hollywood producer, but that I would assume that's what people would want from a business standpoint. People want to see more. You just can't end it in a happy ending like that. You'd be like, nope, and that's that.
Oh, the perfect comparison. Have you ever watched Dune?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they totally only
Perfect.
told half the story.
Yes, they did, but that's the point. That's the point. Is that they didn't want to make it like the 1980s Dune where it sucked. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, it was bad. I've read the books, okay? Frank Herbert's Dune is a masterpiece, okay? But let's be honest, when they started this movie up, like the Dune movie, okay, they told half the story because they knew you can't get through everything in one movie. They knew that. And so what they did was they crafted the absolute best story like they could in like if book to film adaptation that they possibly could by staying faithful to the Bene Gesserit, by staying faithful to the just everything to the Fremen, and it keeps that. And then we have the movie coming out later this year, and it was a box office hit. I think the same thing could be done with a D&D campaign like this, where if you have so much of everything right here, you can only tell so much of the story in one movie, so you keep that there, and then you wait for some time to happen. I think it's been like a year or two. And during that time, you get that filmed, you get that set up, and then you release a banger of the second one, which is what I think is going to happen with Dune, because there's no way they're going to drop the ball.
Well, yeah, everybody's going to call for that one.
There's no way they drop the ball on that.
I was a little like, I wanted some emotional dopamine release of some hero moment and then leave me hanging for the next one. But that's just, I mean, I've read them too.
Well, I would say the emotional I guess kind of catharsis to that movie, like the big release and everything, would be when you have Leto Atreides and Harkonnen in the same room, and his last words were, "Here I am, and here I remain."
Yes, and I do think they did a wonderful job with this latest Dune. I do, and maybe that's something that the D&D.
So that's kind of like the reason why I was bringing that up, is that's kind of the lesson I would hope that Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons and a lot of these movies can understand, is if you know that you have a gigantic story like Lucas had for Star Wars, or Gygax might have like had for D&D or something, and you can only tell so much, limit it to one movie, make a second one, people will want it.
That's good to know. That's awesome.
So any other last comments?
Yep, same. And there's two things I want to point out on that is one, ultimately the dice dictate the story.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Two, D&D is the name, the term itself is just ubiquitous to the mechanics. There's a plethora of different types of spin-offs. You have D&D 5e, Star Wars Edition. You have Mutants and Masterminds. You have Pathfinder, which on their
Ooh,
second edition right
Pathfinder
now.
slap. Starfinder too.
Uh, yeah, what's and it doesn't even have to be that. There's
Cyberpunk.
well, so like one page RPGs, like a honeypot heist, honey heist. There's
Okay, that's true.
as time has gone on, people have broken down just like what does it take to get a small time a one shot off, and uh we're seeing a lot of uprisings of these one page. They're called one page TT RPGs, and you just get a piece of paper. It's got uh some small mechanics, what your dice rolls are, and what the plot is, and that's that.
Oh,
So you
okay.
can do it. You can do an entire campaign in less time than it takes to play a game of Monopoly. So it'd be a Monopoly, but
I would just love to try it, but if you guys are too busy, that's fine. I understand, but that would be
the
fun.
you want to talk about a dopamine rush when you have to beat a check of like 17 or higher,
Oh
and
my
you
gosh.
get a nat 20 on that. Oh, it is something to, yeah, you will remember that.
I do. I remember. I mean, one game, and but I was just never in the realm of people that played after that. I mean, so I just watch it with such love, and it's just such a vivid memory that I'm like, man, I could get carried away so easily with.
I can totally see that.
And but because I love the way the stories go and they're unexpected and the camaraderie and everything going on in between, and um, just playing with people, and it's in person. I mean, I guess it's online now too, but at the time, I mean, it's strictly in person. And this is the type of I stopped playing table games when as soon as I could beat them. As soon as I knew the secret and I could win them, I never played them again. I don't I don't feel like D&D would ever be something that I could figure out and would want to quit because I figured it out.
Games like D&D, they're built for you not to beat the game. It's for you to beat another human being.
Yes.
And depending how experienced or how evil genius they are, can be very simple, or you're gonna lie awake at night going, "Why did I think of that?"
Yes. Which is, you know, I feel like I've never explored my full potential in D&D because I think I would have totally been 100% addicted and not do anything else because I have a very obsessive personality.
She would have 100% been the evil genius, let me tell you.
So
She's got
instead, I write
a bright mind.
where I can be the DM.
DM is
I definitely think that if you're interested in playing, a really good place to start or to learn anything about it would be Critical Role, Vox Machina. Vox Machina is a little bit adult in a lot of ways. So if you a little sensitive to some inappropriate things, I maybe wouldn't recommend watching it. But if you're if you're not really sensitive to that and you find that stuff kind of funny like I do, it'd be fun to watch.
I
Okay.
grew up on a farm.
my hot take. I would watch Dimension 20 before Critical Role.
Ooh, good point.
Which one?
Uh,
What was it?
Dimension 20,
Dimension.
it's off College Humor. And the reason why I say them over Critical Role is because Critical Role's episodes are like 4 hours long. Um, Brendan Lee Mulligan, who's the DM for D20, they keep them within an hour, 2 hours tops. 2 hours is like it's a pinnacle moment inside the campaign, but they're usually only an hour long.
Okay, we'll check it out. Thanks you guys so much.
I really
I was just like, Amy, we can't get on and talk about this movie. We don't know anything about D&D, and it just would have been so lame without this conversation. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
appreciate you taking your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
By the way, I believe any D&D player would be an amazing writer.
Yeah, you guys are
Grab those stories and write them. So encourage
You
you.
hear that, wife? Play more with me.
There you go. Good training ground for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you, you guys.